The fast food industry is collapsing. And I don't mean struggling, I mean actually collapsing. Right now, in early 2026, we're watching major chains close hundreds of locations, file for bankruptcy protection, and completely disappear from the American landscape. And the crazy part, these aren't small regional chains. These are brands you've known your entire life. Brands that seemed untouchable just a few years ago. But between rising costs, changing consumer habits, and catastrophic business decisions, these giants are falling. Today, I'm going to tell you about 10 fast food chains that won't make it through 2026. Some of these will shock you. Some you might have seen coming. But all of them represent a fundamental shift in how Americans eat. Before we start, hit that subscribe button because this channel is tracking the collapse of corporate America in real time, and you need to stay informed. Let's dive in. First, let me explain what's happening across the entire fast food industry, because this isn't just about individual restaurants making bad decisions. This is about a perfect storm of economic factors that's destroying the entire business model. Factor number 1. Labor costs. Fast food used to survive on paying minimum wage to workers, but across the country, minimum wages have been rising dramatically. California just hit $20 per hour for fast food workers. Other states are following. That's a 40 to 50% increase in labor costs over just a few years. Now, you might say, quote, zero. And I agree, but the business model of fast food was built on cheap labor. When you increase the biggest expense by 40 to 50%, something has to give. Factor number 2, food costs. Inflation has absolutely destroyed the economics of cheap food. The cost of beef, chicken, cheese, bread, everything that goes into fast food has exploded in price. We're talking 25 to 35% increases since 2021. Factor number 3, commercial real estate. Rent for restaurant locations has skyrocketed, especially in urban and suburban areas where fast food chains operate. Leases that made sense 5 years ago are now drowning these companies. And factor number 4, and this is the big one, customers are done. People are tired of paying $15 to $18 for a fast food meal that used to cost $7 to $8. They're looking at the prices and saying, quote, one fast food was supposed to be cheap and convenient. Now it's expensive and barely convenient. The value proposition is broken. And when value breaks, brands die. Number 10. Boston Market. Let's start with one that's basically already dead, Boston Market. In 2024, they operated about 300 locations. By the end of 2025, they were down to fewer than 30. And in 2026, they're in complete freefall. Here's what happened. Boston Market got destroyed by debt. They owed millions to suppliers, landlords, and food vendors. Courts have forced them to close locations to pay back debts. And the few stores that remain open are barely functioning. I talked to former employees who told me they were showing up to work only to find the doors locked because the franchise owner abandoned the location overnight. No warning, no final paycheck, just gone. But the real issue is that Boston Market never figured out its identity. Were they fast food, fast casual, sit-down dining? They tried to be everything and ended up being nothing special. And in this economy, if you're not special, you're dead. By the end of 2026, Boston Market will be completely gone. Mark my words, the brand is already essentially extinct. They just haven't made the official announcement yet. Number 9. Popeyes. This one might surprise you. Popeyes had that viral chicken sandwich moment back in 2019. Lines around the block. Social media going crazy. It looked like they were unstoppable. But here's what the hype masked. Popeyes has been closing stores at an alarming rate. In 2024 alone, they closed over 200 locations, and in 2025, another 150 closed. That's not growth, that's contraction. The problem with Popeyes is operational chaos. Their stores are consistently rated as having some of the worst service in fast food. Long wait times, incorrect orders, rude staff, dirty locations. It's not just 1 or 2 stores, it's systemic across the brand. And those franchise owners, they're bleeding money. The parent company, Restaurant Brands International, takes huge fees from franchisees while providing minimal support. Franchise owners have been speaking out publicly about how the business model doesn't work anymore. With labor costs rising and customer satisfaction plummeting, Popeyes locations are becoming unprofitable. And when stores don't make money, they close. Simple as that. By the end of 2026, I predict Popeyes will have closed at least 40% of their remaining locations. The brand will survive in some form, but it'll be a shell of what it once was. Number 8. Arby's. Arby's has been struggling for years, and 2026 is looking like the year they finally break. Here's the brutal truth. Nobody knows what Arby's is anymore. They started as a roast beef sandwich place. Then they tried to be a premium sandwich shop. Then they got into weird marketing with their We Have the Meats campaign. But none of it worked to build a loyal customer base. Look at the numbers. Arby's has been steadily declining in store count since 2018. They peaked at around 3,400 locations, and now they're below 3,000. That's not catastrophic yet, but the trend is clear. And here's the real problem. Arby's prices are now competing with fast casual chains like Panera and Chipotle. But the quality doesn't match up. Why would I pay $12 to $14 for an Arby's sandwich when I could get a Chipotle bowl for the same price? Franchise owners are struggling. Multiple locations have been sold to new operators, who then immediately close them. That's a death spiral indicator when even discounted franchises aren't worth operating. Plus, Arby's has one of the oldest customer demographics in fast food. Their core customers are literally aging out of the market. They haven't captured younger consumers, and that's a fatal flaw. By the end of 2026, I expect Arby's to announce a major restructuring that will involve closing 500-plus locations. The brand might technically survive, but it'll be unrecognizable. Number 7. Carl's Jr./Hardee's. These two brands are owned by the same company, CKE Restaurants, and they're both in serious trouble. Carl's Jr. dominates the West Coast, Hardee's the East and South, and both are closing stores at an accelerating rate. In 2023, they had about 2,700 combined locations. By the end of 2025, they were down to around 2,200. That's 500 locations gone in just 2 years. And the closures are accelerating in 2026. The problem? They're stuck in the middle. Too expensive to be value fast food. Not good enough to be premium fast food. They tried to position themselves as the _3_ option with higher prices, but customers rejected that positioning, and the quality is inconsistent. I've been to Carl's Jr. locations that were decent and others that were absolutely disgusting. When customers can't trust what experience they'll get, they stop coming. CKE Restaurants is also drowning in debt from a series of acquisitions and expansion attempts that failed. That debt is crushing their ability to invest in store improvements or marketing. Here's a prediction. By the end of 2026, Carl's Jr. and Hardee's will either be sold to another company in a desperation move, or they'll file for bankruptcy protection. Either way, hundreds more locations will close. Number 6. Sonic Drive-In. Sonic is an interesting case because their whole business model is based on real estate, those drive-in spots with car hop service. But that model is collapsing in the current economy. First, the real estate itself is a problem. Sonic locations take up huge amounts of land because of all those parking spots. That land is expensive and property taxes keep rising. Many franchise owners are realizing their land is worth more empty than with a Sonic on it. Second, the labor model is broken. Sonic relies on car hops workers who bring food to your car. But in 2026, with labor costs soaring, that model is unsustainable. They're spending way more on labor than traditional drive-through chains. Third, Sonic's menu has become bloated and confused. They're trying to be everything: burgers, hot dogs, chicken, breakfast, ice cream, drinks. But when you try to be everything, you're not great at anything. The numbers tell the story. Sonic has been closing stores every year since 2021. In 2025, they closed over 100 locations, and early reports from 2026 suggest even more closures are coming. Franchise owners are walking away. Multiple reports of franchisees defaulting on loans because their Sonic locations aren't profitable. When franchise owners give up, the brand is in deep trouble. I predict by the end of 2026, Sonic will have closed at least 200 more locations, and we'll start seeing major markets completely abandon Sonic presence. Number 5. Quiznos. Remember Quiznos? If you don't, that's exactly the problem. Quiznos went from over 5,000 locations in 2007 to fewer than 200 in 2025, and in 2026 they're essentially extinct. What happened? Quiznos is one of the most spectacular collapses in fast food history. They completely destroyed their franchise owners with unreasonable fees and forced purchasing agreements. Franchisees sued the company. Many went bankrupt. The brand tried to rebuild multiple times. New ownership, new strategies, new marketing. Nothing worked, because once customers forget about you, it's almost impossible to come back. The few Quiznos locations still open in 2026 are mostly in airports and gas stations, captive audience locations where people don't have choices. That's not a viable business model. By the end of 2026, I expect Quiznos to completely cease operations. They're already functionally dead. This is just the final chapter. Number 4. Steak and Shake. Steak and Shake is in the middle of an identity crisis that's killing the brand. They used to be a sit-down restaurant with table service. Then they tried to convert to fast casual. Then they tried a hybrid model. Nothing is working. The numbers are devastating. Steak and Shake had about 600 locations in 2018. By the end of 2025, they were down to around 350. That's a 40% decline in just 7 years. And the locations that remain open, many have converted to a weird self-service model where you order at a kiosk and pick up your own food. But you're still sitting in a full restaurant. Customers hate it. It's the worst of both worlds. The parent company, Biglari Holdings, has been accused by investors and analysts of mismanaging the brand into oblivion. The CEO has made bizarre decisions that alienated franchise owners and customers alike. Multiple franchise operators have sued the company. Others have just abandoned their locations, and new franchise agreements have completely dried up. Nobody wants to buy into a dying brand. Here's my prediction. By the end of 2026, Steak and Shake will have fewer than 200 locations left, and they'll be in survival mode, not growth mode. The brand is dying in real time. Number 3. Subway. This is the big one. Subway is the largest restaurant chain in the world by location count, or at least they were. But in 2026, Subway is in terminal decline. Let's look at the numbers. Subway peaked at about 42,000 locations worldwide. By the end of 2025, they were down to around 37,000. That's 5,000 locations closed in just a few years. And in 2026, the closures are accelerating. In the United States specifically, Subway is closing stores at a rate of 500 to 1,000 per year. That's catastrophic for a brand this large. What went wrong? Everything. First, the quality perception is terrible. Multiple scandals about food quality. Remember the whole quote 4 thing? That destroyed trust. Second, their franchisee relationship is toxic. Subway takes high fees from franchise owners while providing minimal support. Owners have been vocal about how unprofitable their stores have become. Third, competition destroyed them. Chains like Jersey Mike's, Firehouse Subs, and Jimmy John's offer better sandwiches at similar prices. Why would anyone choose Subway? Fourth, their menu is stale. They've tried to innovate, but nothing sticks. The core Subway experience hasn't meaningfully improved in 20 years. And finally, this is crucial, Subway locations are everywhere, which used to be an advantage. But now it's a disadvantage because they're cannibalizing themselves. Multiple Subways in the same area competing for the same customers. Subway won't completely disappear in 2026, but they'll close at least 2,000 more locations this year. The brand is in managed decline, and there's no realistic path to recovery. Number 2. Wendy's. Wait. Wendy's. Yes, I know this seems crazy. Wendy's has been positioned as one of the _5_, along with McDonald's and Burger King for decades. But Wendy's is in serious trouble in 2026. Here's what's happening. Wendy's tried to compete on quality. Fresh, never frozen beef, better ingredients, premium positioning. But that strategy has backfired spectacularly. Because when you position yourself as premium, you can also be cheap fast food. And Wendy's prices have skyrocketed. A combo meal at Wendy's now costs $12 to $15 in most markets. For fast food, that's absolutely insane. Customers are rebelling. Social media is full of people expressing shock at Wendy's prices. Quote 6 is a common complaint. That's not sustainable. But Wendy's can't lower prices because their costs are too high. They've locked themselves into the premium ingredient model, which costs more. They're stuck. And here's the killer stat. Wendy's same-store sales growth has been negative or flat for multiple quarters. That means existing locations are making less money. When revenue declines while costs increase, you get store closures. In 2025, Wendy's closed about 140 locations more than they closed in years, and internal reports suggest 2026 will be even worse. We're talking about potential closures of 200 to 300 locations this year. Wendy's won't disappear entirely, but by the end of 2026, they'll be a significantly smaller chain. And if they don't figure out their pricing strategy, the decline will continue. And finally, number 1, Burger King. This is the most shocking one on the list because Burger King is a global giant, but in 2026, Burger King is facing an existential crisis. Let's talk numbers. Burger King has been steadily losing locations for years. They had about 18,000 locations worldwide in 2020. By the end of 2025, they were down to around 16,500. That's 1,500 locations gone. But it's worse than it looks, because many of the locations that remain open are struggling. Multiple franchise operators have gone bankrupt. Others have sued the parent company, Restaurant Brands International, claiming the business model is broken. And here's the thing. Burger King's reputation is in the toilet. Customer satisfaction surveys consistently rank Burger King at or near the bottom of major fast food chains. The stores are often dirty. Service is slow. Food quality is inconsistent. They've tried rebranding. They've tried menu innovation. They've tried new advertising campaigns. Nothing works, because the fundamental problems, poor operations, weak franchise support, and declining quality haven't been fixed. In 2026, we're seeing something unprecedented. Major markets where Burger King is completely pulling out. Entire regions where every Burger King location has closed or is scheduled to close. The parent company is in cost-cutting mode. They're closing underperforming stores, trying to consolidate, trying to survive. But when you're in survival mode, you're not thriving, you're dying slowly. Here's my bold prediction. By the end of 2026, Burger King will announce a major restructuring that involves closing at least 1,000 locations worldwide. The brand will survive, but it'll be a shadow of its former self. So there you have it. 10 fast food giants that won't survive 2026, at least not in any form you'd recognize. Now, to be clear, some of these brands will technically still exist. There might be a few locations scattered around, but they'll be functionally dead, irrelevant in the broader market. This is what collapse looks like. It's not dramatic and sudden. It's slow and grinding. Stores close one by one. Customer traffic declines. Profits disappear. And eventually the brand dies. And you know what? This is just the beginning. The fast food industry as we've known it for 50 years is fundamentally broken. The economics don't work anymore. The customer value proposition is gone. What comes next? Probably smaller, regional chains that can operate more efficiently, ghost kitchens and delivery-only concepts, maybe a return to actual local restaurants. But the era of massive fast food empires is ending, and 2026 is the year we're watching it happen in real time. If this video opened your eyes to what's really happening in the fast food industry, hit that like button and share this with everyone you know. This is information corporate media won't give you. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe now. I'm tracking the collapse of corporate America across every industry, and you need to stay informed about what's coming. Leave a comment and tell me, which of these closures surprises you most? Are there other chains you think are in trouble? I read every comment. Until next time, stay informed, stay ahead, and remember, change is coming whether we're ready or not.